We're live.
All right.
We're going live. Here it is. Setting up for Facebook Live. So, Lonnie, we're just setting it up,
Okay.
and let's see what we got here. We're, if you're watching this on Facebook, you're watching a set. This is behind the scenes, and this is we're scheduled to start in 12 minutes, but we're going at it now, and we're going at it now because we want to make sure we get it straight. And so here we are, um, the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum, and there should be a big thing there that says live, happening now live. And there's one person tuning in. It's me. So now we're there's one person tuning in. It's me, and we're live, and that's cool. And it's good. I mean, look, when the technology when it works is great.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're here. I'm Emil Guillermo. If you're just joining us at 1:49 Pacific time, we have built in the 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 waste time. I guess that's what they call it. I'm not the waste time, but the warm up time. You know, we built up the warm up time, and we are. Let's see. I'm going to uh, pin me. Let's see. I'm going to pin me, and so that it stays just on me. Actually, we have the gallery view. So
Okay.
I've got Lonnie Patubo. Lonnie, I have to look at the word Riamas to say your name correctly because I want to respect the way you say it, and you say Riamas, and I would say the double L the Filipino way,
Yeah, yeah.
Riamas. But that's all right. We'll get into your story. Lonnie is here. Lonnie is here because, like many of you, he is a supporter of the museum. And we definitely appreciate his being a supporter of the museum. And we were talking about photographs. And so we'll talk about that once we get into the whole thing at 2 o'clock, because perhaps you are tuning in because you know that we're going to talk to Lonnie. And you say, well, he's going to talk to Lonnie at 2. I definitely want to tune in and not miss that. So, and apparently we got a few more listeners, a few more viewers. My name is Emil Guillermo, and I'm the museum director of the Philippine American National Historical Society Museum, the FANHS Museum. And we are here because we said we're going to do this live event. We're going to do a live event from the museum, a virtual museum pop-up, because I'm so happy that you're here. First of all, so happy that you're here with us at the museum for this, and that you're supporting the museum. If you come to the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum Facebook page, this is where we like to post things. Come here and you can see all sorts of things. Like the most recent thing is our call for contributions. Our call for contributions featured a photograph this month of my father. And it was an old photograph taken in 1932. And my father was sitting in, of all things, he was just all duded up like a Filipino in his Sunday finest, right? I don't know if he ever went to church, but Filipinos are Catholic. They have Sunday finest, even if the finest doesn't include going to church. But they were Sunday clothes. He had his saddle shoes. He had on his nice suit, and he was pointing a finger. He looked like Uncle Sam. He looked like a Filipino Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam wants you, kind of thing. He's pointing a finger. My cousin Faye found it uh, in a pile of old photos that she was going through, and she messengered me and said, "Hey, look, I got this picture here of my dad and your dad, and do you want it for the museum? And I said, yeah. So she sent me a bunch. I'm going through them now, but she sent me a digital version of that photo. And the photo is important because how many photos from 1932 do you stumble on every day? 1932, he looked so happy. He's pointing a finger. He looks like he's holding it looks like maybe a flask on, on his hip. My father was a thirsty fellow, but I don't know how thirsty he was in that photograph. So I don't want to cast any aspersions about what he may have been drinking. But he's happy. He's with his chums. The photo says, "Here I am with my chums," and they're having a good time. Right? 1932. Just think, 1932, we're coming out of the Depression. 1932, 2 years after Fermin Tobera was shot and killed in Watsonville, after riots in Stockton, after riots in Watsonville, 2 years after those 1930 events, and then 2 years before the Tidings-McDuffie Act, which repatriates Filipinos and sends them off back to the Philippines to self-deport. This is the kind of situation that existed back then. You'll recall in the history books, 1924 was the beginning of some very, very strong anti-immigrant sentiment. They banned immigration from Europe, but they left this loophole for Filipinos because Filipinos were American nationals as colonized Americans. And as colonized Americans, my dad, a colonized, you get to wear your suit on Sunday. That's what you get to do if you're a colonized American. And there he is with his chums, and maybe that's why he looks like he doesn't have a care in the world. But we know he had to have a care in the world because 2 years later, after that picture was taken in 1932, in 1934, the Tidings-McDuffie Act corrects their status, reclassifies them not as American nationals, as colonized American Filipinos. They get reclassified as Filipino aliens. And that's why they're asked to repatriate and self-deport. That was what was happening in 1934. So Filipinos said, I'm not self-deporting. I'm wearing a suit here in America. I'm going to stay here. I'm not going back to the Philippines. It was a kind of a point of pride. And I have relatives who came 1934 and they had to stop in Angel Island before going on to America. And they were meeting people who were self-deporting, people who were coming, people who were going still. 1934. That's how confusing it was. 2 years after that picture of my dad, if you go on the Filipino American National Historical site, a museum site, you'll see that picture of my dad. And we asked for your donations because we're trying to tell these stories. These are stories, our Filipino American stories. And through pictures we can tell these stories. And that was why, I thought, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if we can talk about our stories through our pictures and not just post them on Facebook or IG, or Insta. I think people call it Insta now. Oh, we put it on Insta, right? No, we want to talk about our pictures, our photographs in an historical context because they have meaning. They have meaning not just to us as Filipino Americans. They have meaning to Americans who are interested and should be interested in their Filipino history, their Filipino American history. So photographs, picture tells 1,000 words, but I can fill in those 1,000 words. I can fill in the 1,000 words for you, but a picture tells 1,000 words. So I want to see people's pictures. I want to see your pictures, and we'll put them on the museum. As a museum director, I thought this would be a great idea to have these occasional pop-ups. And we're going to have our official pop-up start at 2 o'clock. Pacific time, which is essentially 2 more minutes. You're just getting the pre-show now. The pre-show ramble. We tested the tech, and we have Lonnie Patubo with us here. Lonnie, hi, Lonnie. Say hi, Lonnie. Just
Hey, hi everybody,
yeah. So
and
Lonnie,
all my FANHS brothers and sisters out there across the country. Hello
Lonnie,
from Arizona.
Lonnie is. Look, everyone could be from anywhere in our listening audience or our viewing audience. So I don't want to call you a homeboy, but we're in Stockton, so you're from Stockton, and
I was born there.
we're gonna get into that because that's an important part of your story, and we're gonna start officially in a little less than a minute now. But that's why Lonnie is standing here with me, so that we can, so that I'm not alone, and so I can ask him some questions about what's going on with him and history. Because here's the point about the museum. The museum is shut down again this week. We're not around. And ordinarily you'd come to the museum in Stockton because I know you want to come visit Stockton. I know it's like on your bucket list, wherever you are. I'm going to go to Stockton. I'm going to go to the old Newberry building. I'm going to see the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum. I'm going to go there. And I'm going to see what this guy Emil is jabbering about. I'm going to see I'm going to get a sense of Filipino history, and I'm going to walk around and see Little Manila. I'm going to go down to Delano and see where the grape strike was. That's about 2 hours away. I'm going to go up north. I'm going to go up north to see Lodi, where those trees were, where they hung Filipinos. I'm going to do all those things, right? And then maybe I'll go to San Francisco if there's time. Maybe I'll go over the Altamont if it's interesting. But maybe there's just too much interesting stuff happening in the Stockton Central Valley. It is, after all, a hotspot. It's a COVID hotspot. And it's the reason why we're shut down again this week. Once again, if you're joining us, this is a kind of a FANHS museum experiment. We are live on Facebook Live on the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum site. And if you're joining us, thank you. And if you contributed to our fundraiser this month, thank you. You'll see it on the site. I talked earlier about my father's picture from 1932 and why that's history. In the future, I'm going to talk more about that picture and why they were where they were and what that picture means to me. My cousin Faye just sent this packet of pictures that she found, and I'm just going through them now. So we'll do that in a future thing. But as I was thinking about pictures and talking with our board and talking with other people about the museum and talking to contributors like Lonnie Patubo, who's here sharing the screen with me, I said, does anyone out there have any pictures? Does anyone out there have anything that you want to share and you want to talk about to our FANHS Museum audience? Because the FANHS Museum audience, we know old pictures. We know what the old pictures mean. We want to know their stories. So I put out the word, and there was Lonnie Patubo, homeboy from Stockton, who's now no longer in Stockton. He's in Arizona. But wait a minute, Arizona, how did that happen? That's a story. And so this is the beginning of what we call an historical or a FANHS museum pop-up. It's a way to make the museum virtual, a way to engage you, our audience, with our Filipino American stories, and a way to see it here live on Facebook. You got to be here. I said 2 o'clock Pacific time. Here we are. Our technology works. There's no excuse. And so I thank you for being here, because the museum is not closed. The museum is closed because of COVID, and we can't accept you in until we get masked up. And look, I'm all set. I'm ready. I got my mask here. got my mask. We got thermometers, the good kind, and I think we got the rectal kind too. No, that's just a joke. We don't have the rectal kind. That's just a joke. I know. But we are prepared. We are prepared when we get the word. When we get the word that we can open, but we aren't ready yet. So we are trying to do the virtual museum. Little later on, I'm going to tell you about the formal things we're doing to make our collection virtual, but on a very easy level, on a very, very, accessible level. I want you to go into your stacks of photographs and find a picture that says something, that has a story, and then come on these virtual pop-ups that we do here on the Facebook page and tell your story. And we had Lonnie Patubo answer a call for a contribution. He made a nice donation. And when I said, what kind of pictures do you have? Lonnie had some pictures. So Lonnie, welcome to our first, this is the first FANHS Museum pop-up. Thank you for being here, Lonnie.
Yeah, pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, Emil.
Yeah,
Pleasure
well,
to finally meet you also.
well, it's a pleasure to meet people like you who are from Stockton and are, the museum's in your heart. But tell me, you've got an Arizona Diamondbacks hat, so that means you got feet in your blood now, huh?
Arizona's home now, but I support the Giants if they're there. Dad was a Giants fan. So.
Yeah. All right. So tell me the story. How did it happen that you moved from Stockton to Phoenix? And well, first of all, tell me about your parents. When did they first arrive in America?
Well, my father arrived in 1962. We arrived via kind of a guest worker program deal. Worked in Salinas on the lettuce field. So he was a migrant farm worker when he first got here.
Well, wait a minute. Lonnie, wait a minute. Your father guest worker program, he was Mexican?
No, Filipino.
Oh, Filipino, but he was the guest worker. Okay, but you're part Mexican too.
Yes, I am. About a quarter.
Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure which side. I should have guessed by Patubo that your father was Filipino. But all right, so he was in the guest worker program. Then what happened?
Well, he worked here in the fields throughout California and Arizona, and through my grandfather, who was a Manong that arrived in the 1930s.
Wow.
That's my mom's father. So my mom is actually the 50-50 mixed mestiza, Filipino-Mexican. So all of my grandparents, except my maternal grandmother, all my grandparents are from the Philippines.
Well, wait a minute now. Your grandfather was a Manong. What year did he arrive?
1930 in Seattle, right before Carlos Bolosan, a couple months before. Same ship.
What ship? What ship?
SS Taft, SS President Taft.
Wow, and Taft, he was the big fat president, so they must have been a big boat. I think that was a joke, but that's all right. You don't have to laugh at that. Hey, so your grandfather came in 1930. My father came in 1928.
Yeah.
I skipped a grandfather.
Yeah.
I'm grandfatherless. Anyway.
Actually, my paternal grandfather was a Sakata, so I got two Manongs on my father's side. My paternal side landed in Hawaii, so he was a Sakata there on the sugar plantation.
Lonnie, let's let our audience just look at you. You are the offspring of the major groups of Filipino immigration. You got one grandfather who was Sakata, and then 1906 they had a big celebration, and then he ultimately come to America?
He did in the 1970s after I was born, because he was kind of my caregiver when we were living in Lathrop. So
yeah, and then the Sakata was your mother's father?
Paternal side, my dad's dad.
Your dad's dad.
Yeah.
And then your mother's father came in 1930.
Yeah.
So you had the best of all Manong worlds. You're a double Manong.
Yeah, straight up Manong generation, huh?
Yeah. See, now that's cool. Now your mom, then how does your mom meet your dad?
Through the fields, because my grandfather was also working. Of course, he was a farm worker that traveled throughout Arizona and California working the fields, and my dad working in the fields. They were also kind of close from the like same province in Ilocos. So
Oh, Locosur. Oh,
my
Ilocano.
dad was from Bantay, and my maternal side, the Riamas, they're from San Vicente.
Oh, so all right. So you're a mestizo.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean, mestizo in all ways. I mean,
3/4 Filipino, a quarter Chicano, Mexican Americans.
and then half Ilocano and half
Yeah.
what's it?
All Ilocano. All my Filipino blood's from Ilocos Sur. So
Oh, Ilocos. My
yeah.
apologies. I'm Ilocos Norte, so I'm just getting.
There's a lot of early Filipinos here in Phoenix from Ilocos Norte.
Oh yeah, the Lawagueños. That's where my dad was from. So all right,
Bacara is another one, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Wait, so now your parents settled in Lathrop, huh? And
Yeah, my dad eventually became a labor organizer, and that job took him back to Stockton because they were living here in Phoenix in the barrios. So the Filipinos here in Phoenix lived in the Mexican communities. We didn't have a little Manila or anything like that out here. We had a little Chinatown where we had a couple of Filipino businesses in the 40s, but that's about it. No little Manila.
so when you went down, when you were growing up in Phoenix, that was what brought your family to Phoenix in the first place? It was the labor job, right?
Yeah, yeah. My dad was working the fields out here and throughout the country. He's traveled to Montana, as far as New York and Wisconsin, Oklahoma. So he traveled quite a bit, Texas.
What did
But
you
it's mainly Arizona and California where he worked.
What did you think as a little boy growing up when you saw did you see your dad often? Did you?
Yeah, yeah. I lived in Stockton up until I was 6, and then I would spend my summers with my dad up in Stockton. So that's how I kept my Filipino side there, the Filipino culture.
Yeah. And then how about when he went around the country, I guess he was away from the family, huh?
Yeah, this was about 1970s era, but once he got the job in Stockton, and he also worked out of Delano too. But once he got to Stockton, he settled there in Stockton and actually rests there. He passed away in 2014, uh,
How old?
but he called Stockton his home.
How old was your dad?
77.
Wow, still young.
Yeah, yeah,
Still young. And how about your mom? Your mom's still around?
yeah. My mom lives here in Phoenix, uh, still around. So she's the mestiza. So she's Phoenix born. So she's a
Wow.
Phoenix native here.
And so and she's the one who's her parents were Ilocano.
She's the straight up 50-50 mix. So
Yeah. And so tell me what got you thinking about your Filipino roots?
um
You're a kind contributor to the museum. Thank you. What made you go over your photographs and say, "Hey, this is kind of interesting"?
Well, here in Phoenix, as if anybody is not aware yet, the FANHS Arizona just chartered here in 2017. So I joined in 2018. So, and part of that was when my dad passed away in 2014, he left a lot of memoirs and writings about his life in the Philippines to his journey here to the U.S. And in there was a lot of history there, and I started doing a lot more research because he was mentioning Pete Velasco and Cesar Chavez and all these organizers and stuff. So I started to dig more into detail about my own past and my history. And with some help from Dr. Dama Balon, I used to message with her, and she helped me do some research on my own family history as well as searching here in Arizona for other families. So, but it's become my passion just to show our community here in Arizona that we've been here since the 1920s, because a lot of our Filipino community here is kind of later immigrants. So some of our pioneers are considered 1980s, but really we've been here since the 1920s, but they're not aware of that. So
Yeah.
I feel as a Manong generation, I need to make sure that that first generation is not forgotten because they paved the way for all of us.
Yeah, you're kind of like the new bridge, that the people who are now members of the Phoenix FANHS probably were born in the 80s, right? Or arrived in the
Yeah,
80s.
and a lot of our founding members, most of them are actually involved in FANHS in Hawaii and Alaska before they relocated here. So our chapter president is actually from Orange Grove, California, as a daughter of a Mano also.
Yeah. And so how big is your chapter, the FANHS chapter
I think
there?
we're about they were saying about 20 now.
Oh, that's good. You're going strong, little by little, and then
Yeah, yeah,
you get other people. You get allies. You're bringing the allies, Filipino
yeah,
by association, and you grow. And
yeah.
so now, what? Where have you discovered you when you first wrote to me? You said you had like a treasure trove of photographs that you had uncovered. Tell me what did you find? Where what?
Oh, well, through, and it's kind of ironic because here, a lot of our mestizo families, again, the Filipinos, the early Filipinos here lived in the barrios with the Mexican American, Mexican community. So they intermarried into that community. We actually had anti-miscegenation laws here in Arizona too, and I found evidence of that. Filipinos not able to um, marry a person of white race. So,
Yeah.
but through my contacts through the barrios, I was able to come in contact with a lot of descendants of these early Filipinos. So, and I was able to locate photos from families, and even though they're raised more on the Chicano culture side here, they're proud of their Filipino roots. They know that their grandfather or their father was part of that initial wave here to the West Coast. So,
Now, a lot of people in California, they've heard of the term Mexipino. When I
yeah, yeah,
talked to you, I thought of the term La Razapino, but
yeah.
what do they call them there in Arizona? Uh-oh. Lonnie, don't you there, Lonnie?
You know,
Yeah. All right, Lonnie. I broke up there a little bit.
and here question there
That's all right. Tell me. So what do they
from
call
now.
you? All right. Something happened. Well, keep going, Lonnie. Are you there? I don't know what to. I can hear you now. Okay, so all right, this happens sometimes with our technology. All right, there you are, Lonnie. You there? Hi, Lonnie. Can you hear me? Oops. There. There. Okay. I don't know. I hear you intermittently, but tell me, we were talking about Mexipinos, Lorazapinos. What do they call them there? Uh-oh. Well, this is going to happen sometimes. That's all right. Bear with us if you're watching on Facebook Live. We're trying our best here to overcome some of these tech obstacles. You there, Lonnie? You th- yeah, I think maybe the best thing is to just to keep jiggling that. I heard something.
Hey, Emil,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
I can hear
Okay.
you now.
Yeah, it was getting kind of choppy there. So
Yeah, that's all right. I can hear you now. So
okay.
what do you call you? I mean, I asked this question. The mix. We've called them Mexipinos and Lorazapinos. What are they called in? What do you call them in Arizona?
Well, we probably say mestizo here. So
Okay, well that's
so
accurate.
yeah,
That's
a
a
lot of the descendants of the early Filipinos here, we call ourselves mestizos, and a lot of them say it with pride, and they're acknowledging their Filipino side that way. So.
yeah. All right, I'm going to share on the screen this picture here of this handsome soldier here. Who is this handsome soldier?
That's Mariano Albano. So he's one of the early Phoenix Filipino community leaders here. He owned a business in downtown Phoenix called the Manila Pool Hall,
The
and that
Manila.
was in Phoenix's Chinatown.
Yeah, the Manila Pool Hall. And this is looks like he was in World War II.
Yes, World War II. He's a veteran, and he's buried in the National Cemetery up here in Phoenix.
And does anyone remember the pool hall that he ran?
Yes, a lot of the descendants remember the pool hall. So remember going to see their grandfathers or their fathers there and having a good time after working the fields.
So now, how did you get into his life first? Did you bump into someone who said, "Hey, we discovered all these photographs," or what?
Okay, somebody mentioned his name. It was from another family. They mentioned the pool hall, and I finally got the name of the owner. So I found a lot of documents on him, like ship logs and other documents. But recently I went on another historical page here called Arizona Barrio Stories.
Mhm.
And through that, his granddaughter saw one of my pictures I shared and said, my grandfather is Mariano Albano. He owned the Manila Pool Hall. And she was the one that shared these pictures with me.
Wow. How many Filipinos are there now in Arizona?
The last count they said were about 70,000 strong. So
70,000. And so when
yeah,
he
but
was,
it seems like there's more coming in. So
well, now 70,000, does that include the part Filipinos or just the whole 100% Filipino or anyone?
probably the 100% Filipinos are here. Like I said, our community is mainly later immigrants that came in the 70s and 80s are the earliest in
Right.
the community here.
And of
Um,
course, like many early immigrants from the Philippines, if they're in an area that, where there are not that many Filipinos, there's an alliance that develops between Japanese, Chinese, other Asians. And you said he ran a pool hall in Chinatown, right?
yeah, there was two pool halls in the Chinatown here in Phoenix in the 1940s,
And his was one of them.
and his was one of them.
And his name again?
Mariano Albano.
Mariano
Yeah,
Albano.
full
So,
name is Mariano Valdez Albano. Is his full name.
and does he have any relatives in the Stockton area? I know some Albanos in Stockton. I wonder if you.
I haven't found that out yet, but I'm sure he has because a lot of the other early Filipinos here, if I mention Stockton, they say, "Oh, I got family up there."
Yeah. Well, I mean, you came from Lathrop down to and Stockton down to Arizona.
Yeah,
So
I'm Stockton born. I was born at Dameron, not too far from where the museum is at.
was that a common thing for Filipinos to go from Stockton to Arizona?
It's starting to seem that way through the research we're finding, and throughout because that's how they got here. They followed that agricultural cycle. I mean, through the fields in California, and they come here to Arizona. And
All right. So
um,
so this is the 40s. Let's see. We got another picture here. This picture is an old picture, and it's kind of typical of a lot of pictures of Filipino gatherings. This was the Phoenix Filipino community in
yeah,
celebration of the Phil Commonwealth, Friday, November 15th, 1935. Pete Yaranan, secretary.
I
And
actually looked up Pete Yaranan, and I've traced him to Stockton in the 40s and 50s. So I'm asking Dylan Delvo if he knows him or anything. So
well,
I've
Dylan
heard of
would
him.
know, he would know everyone, I would think. Uh,
Yeah, he's helped me quite a bit also.
Yeah, Dylan's a good guy, good friend of mine. And the name Yaranan is not, that's a common name. I've heard that name many times before.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's something. All right, so now and look here are the Filipinos. Of course, they have instruments because you got to have. Did you get that zoom in? Can you see me zoom in?
Uh,
Or
Let me
did you?
see here.
Well, maybe not. Well, just look on the Zoom screen. Anyway, I've zoomed in so that we can see that they're everything's around music, right? So this is a typical Filipino gathering. When you say, "Oh, look, and here's a Filipino with a white girl," was that you discovered anti-miscegenation? Um,
Yeah, I researched it. Here in Arizona, it was rebuilt in 1960. It was challenged, repealed. But during my research, I located a list and it like a document where there was Filipinos being denied marriage.
yeah,
So they were classified Malays here in Arizona, and anybody with Asian white race were not allowed to marry Malays. Was one of the group.
right. And it's
But they go to New Mexico and get married. That was the case.
I mean,
or they would marry into the community they live. Like that's why I'm here.
yeah.
So the Mexican community.
And so some of the photographs a little overexposed there, or underexposed rather. Well, improperly exposed, whatever the correct term is. But you can see it's black and white. It's authentic and it is dated. And you can see a mix: women, children, men in suits, instruments. The musicians were there. This is the Phoenix Filipino community in celebration of of the Phil Commonwealth,
Yep, the Commonwealth. It's
1935.
a
And
very historic picture.
I would have to say, I'd have to look this up, but I would say it's probably the Tidings McDuffie Act had something to do with that in 34.
Yeah, yeah. I was researching that too.
And so, I mean, I will have to check on that, but it shows you the pride that Filipinos had in the homeland still when they were treated in a mixed fashion here in America. They still took pride in their homeland, and they were still, well, in 1935 they were considered, um, they were no longer uh, American nationals. They were Filipino aliens, right? So they got together in their small community groups. Where did you find this picture?
That was the Albano family.
Oh,
So the family, the granddaughter of Marco Albano, when I came in contact with her, she shared that with
and I bet you have
her
more.
name's Valerie Albano.
I bet you she has boxes and boxes more of these, right?
Yes, we're because I'm searching. I want a picture of the wall. That would be a good picture for us to actually have a Filipino establishment here.
Yeah. I mean, this is, I mean, what we're looking for is we're looking for the little breadcrumbs that lead us to a real Filipino community, because a lot of people aren't aware of this. Filipinos in Phoenix? That sounds like a bad joke there. No, it's not a bad joke. They were there. They were there since the 20s. And they weren't just there in the 1980s and the 1990s. Okay, that's an interesting picture. I appreciate you sharing that. Here's another picture we have. Let's see. Oop, I've got to, now I have to. We have another picture, which is another group picture. If I can manipulate this darn thing. Okay. Okay, I'm not manipulating this darn thing. Let's see, hold on. What are the chances? Okay, here's another one. This is the Protective Philippine Pioneers of America. What can you tell me about this photograph? This was taken in 1941, Lonnie.
Yeah, that was shared by her. Uh, uh, Sam Carbajal, the son of Felix, was the early Filipino here. He actually served in there. I have pictures of him too. So there's tons of pictures.
Oh, you're breaking up again.
Family.
Lonnie, you're breaking up again. I hope you're not, maybe, I don't know what it is. We don't have a great internet connection. It could be me, but yeah, just refresh and hit unmute and tell me, what can you tell me about the Protective Philippine Pioneers of America?
Well, that was one of our earliest organizations here, from what we discovered.
Because the Protective Philippine Pioneers of America, that sounds so Filipino. It's kind of florid, Protective Philippine Pioneers, the PPP, PPPA. That the local officers and members, the first inaugural banquet involved the Westward Ho in Phoenix in April 20th, 1941. And look at them. They're all duded up, and they've got whites and Filipinos all mixing. I guess white couples, maybe. I can't tell who's coupled with whom, but once again, look at all the bachelors right behind them. I guess, was that the case? Were people there still unmarried bachelors for the most part? What do you think? What does your research show?
The early ones were.
Yeah. And you could see some with children, and clearly some kind of coupling between Filipinos and whites. And this was the social scene. No different from the way it is now. Of course, you have to have a band, and I bet you they had a priest giving the prayer before, and they bet you they had a color guard bringing in the flag, just like any other organization. This is our thing, the Philippine Protective Pioneers of America. We've always had organizations. I think in San Francisco, where I was born, we had the United Laogaños. And so I relate to pictures like this. Wherever there's a Filipino community, there's got to be a group like this, which protective also kind of indicates to me it might have been a mutual aid group where people, kicked in money into a bucket when someone died, and then they'd share that bucket with the family. Do you know anything like that? If that were the case here?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. A lot of community gathering early on.
Yeah.
Um,
And so, yeah. Well, and once again, I think you broke up when you explained it the first time. You got this from who now? From where?
that photo is from the Carbajal family. So the Carbajals are also early. They're a mestizo family here in Phoenix.
Mhm. And do they favor one over the other, Filipino over Mexican?
They're proud of their. They know they're Filipino. They're proud of that culture, but they're raised more in the Chicano culture. So
Uh-huh. So do
the
they?
Spanish and the Spanglish, the just all the culture, the foods.
So
But
here's the
they're aware of the Filipino food. I mean, they're aware of that. Uh,
here's the key, Lonnie. When their lumpias start looking like burritos, that's when you get suspicious. Look,
yeah.
look. Let's move on to another photo. Uh, let's see. Here's another photo. Oh, we showed that one. Okay, I gotta go to my share screen. Okay, where is that? Technology. Yes, you can only blame technology so much, and then it's just my fault. Uh, oops. Okay, we've seen that one. It's not giving me my grab screen. Okay, so tell me about your family again. The other two pictures we have is your grandfather, right? Lonnie.
Yeah, that's my grandfather.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. So while I try to find it, tell me about your grandfather.
Well, again, he was a Manong that arrived in 1930 in Seattle,
Mhm.
and then made his way to Phoenix by the 1940s. That photo is actually 1946, the wedding photo of him.
Mhm. I'm trying to find. Let's see. I'm going to stop the screen share and just go back to us, and then find the photo. Tell me more about your grandfather.
He, like I say, arrived in 1930 in Seattle and worked his way to Arizona by 1940s. But he was another Manong, a farm worker. So he
Uh,
followed the crops. Central Valley, worked in Bakersfield.
mhm.
I remember as a kid in Lathrop, he would take us grapes from Bakersfield, big old boxes, big old crates of grapes.
And big old boxes of grapes. So that's him right there, right?
Yes, in the middle, the couple. So that's my grandmother and that's my grandfather.
And your grandmother's Chicana.
Yeah, they're originally from Estancia, New Mexico, and they moved to Phoenix around that same time period in the 30s. So on each side of them, those are my great grandparents. So those are my grandma's parents there, my
Wow.
great grandparents,
From
Benavides. So
on
that's my
the
Chicano side.
Mexican side, on the
Yeah,
Chicana side, yeah. And here's your father or your grandfather
that's my grandfather. Yeah.
from Ilocos Sur.
San Vicente Loco Sur. Yeah.
And he was the one who was the cicada, right?
No. The Sakata was my paternal side.
Oh, paternal side. Okay. This is
Yeah.
on your mother's side.
This is my maternal grandfather. Yes.
He came in 1930 on the USS Taft, or on the
Yeah.
Taft, the Dollar Line Taft.
Yeah. Dollar Line.
And then he went to Seattle first.
Right. Yeah. Arrived in Seattle. I traced him to Gilroy, and the census, 1930 census, he was living in Gilroy at a labor camp.
Uh-huh. Wow. How'd he get to Stockton?
Well, then I located his World War II draft card, and he had a Stockton address on there. It was actually he actually registered in Manteca.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. People who are half will have to say lard, just to
Yeah.
be clear. Manteca. Okay, so you saw his draft card. Did he go in the army?
No, he didn't. He didn't serve. It was just a draft card that they registered. And all Filipinos I researched, they had a draft card, but they didn't necessarily serve.
Yeah. And how old was he when he came to America?
18.
18. So he would
Yeah.
have been right. Well, he would have been old enough to serve. He would have been of a good age. I mean, if you were older,
Yeah.
you might have aged out of the army as a possibility. What did he do when he didn't go to the army? He just kept working in the fields.
Yeah, he worked in the fields up until his passing in 1991.
Wow, 91.
So family stories that they told me when he's in the hospital ill is they had to try, one of my uncles had to try to stay there to keep him there because he kept on saying, I have to get back to Yuma. Yuma, Arizona is the southwest corner of Arizona, and there's a lot of agriculture in that area. So it's near the Imperial Valley, El Centro, in that area.
So he was a migrant all his life. He was up in California in the Central
Yeah.
Valley, and he felt compelled to go to Yuma.
Yeah, because he actually, when my grandmother passed away in '78, he had another family in San Luis, Mexico. So my grandfather actually lived in Mexico. He lived in San Luis, Mexico, which is a border town near Yuma, Arizona, southwest corner of Arizona.
When you
And
say
he asked to work in the fields in the Yuma area.
when you say he had another family, what do you mean by that?
Well, working the fields in the southwest area, he met a lady from San Luis, Mexico, and she had kids already from a prior marriage, but he took those kids in as his own, and they carry on his name there. So there's Riamas in San Luis, Mexico.
Well, and this is the Riama side, the
This is
RIF,
Riamas, yeah. So he's a Riamas, yeah.
and your mother's the Patubo.
She's the Riamas.
Oh, she's the
That's her dad, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get my family trees mixed up. I apologize. So this is your mother's side, the Riamas.
That's my maternal grandfather, yeah.
Your paternal side, the Patubo side.
Yeah.
Yeah. But your father, he lived a long life too on the paternal side.
Yes, he did. He lived up till 77.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not as long as as he should have maybe, but 77. He lived a hard life. He was in the field.
Stockton home. He never left Stockton since he moved there in the 70s. So that's where he settled.
Yeah. Tell me more about Riamas. He was just forever a migrant, really?
Yeah, his entire life. That's what he did. And the family stories on it, because many of those Manongs, they couldn't read or write English, a lot of them. And he was one of them. But the joke was that if you told him what town to go work in the field, he could find his way there. So
you have relatives in Riamas. You were related to the Riamases down in south of the border.
yeah. And the Riamas in Stockton too. Yeah, there's quite a bit. When I first talked to Don Mabalon, right away she asked me, "Are you related to the Riamases here in Stockton?"
And you laughed, that hearty laugh. Say, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah, she knew right away. So,
have you seen the Riamases in Mexico?
yes, we just went in December because we hadn't seen many of them since my grandfather passed away in '91. Is when he passed away here in Phoenix, and they actually came up for the services. and that was the last time we saw them. So we actually got to see quite a bit of them. Last December, we had a event down in Yuma, and we got to see them. And I'm connected to them on Facebook and stuff too. So
Yeah. Well, that's great. And you continue to have conversation and continue
yeah,
to.
because they're really interested in it because I've told them it's like, he's from the Philippines, right? So they see a lot of my posts stuff
Yeah.
about him.
Tell me, Lonnie, doing all this work, going through your, your biographical tree, going through all the old pictures, uh, how how gratifying has it been just to go through and discovering all the stories, or uh, just coming to understand these stories? How important have these pictures been?
It's awesome. I mean, it's just a sense of self-identity. I mean, growing up, yeah, I knew I was Filipino, but I didn't actually know the history of it all, that I was actually a descendant of that early wave that came here. And again, I do it also because I have a 12-year-old daughter now. She just turned 12.
Wow.
But she's also there's a new added mix to the Patubo line there. She's Cambodian. Her mother is half Cambodian. So
Wow. That now
uh,
that is diversity in America, right?
yeah,
It's
so she's
Filipino.
Filipino, Cambodian, and a little bit of Mexican American blood there. So
Wow. So and how recent an immigrant from Cambodia is that, from the Stockton side, or
and
just
and it's actually funny because when I first met her mom,
uh,
when I told her I was from Stockton, she goes, "What?" She goes, "I lived in Stockton."
uh,
Because her mom is also part of history because she got here in the early 80s. So it
yeah,
was the time her family was sponsored here. So it was the time during around like the Khmer Rouge and all that
right,
going
Paul.
on over there. So yeah, my daughter has quite a bit of history in her blood that
Yeah, very
and
very
pride
much
there.
so. That's a very important time too. I
Yeah.
remember when I was in Stockton. The Cambodian community is so huge in Stockton.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's bigger than people think,
It
right?
is. It
And
is. Yeah.
and they're concentrated around Oak Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have, some of them have businesses. And when I was the diversity reporter at the Stockton Record, it was so interesting to find out about the Cambodian community. And
Yeah.
being in the being from the Bay Area, I knew nothing. I said, well, there's Chinese and Japanese and Filipino, and that's it.
Yeah. She was from that Tam O'Shanter and Hammer Lane area up on north side there.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there's a real a thriving community there.
Yeah.
And they made the news, good times and bad, but
Yes.
we noticed they were there and we acknowledged their presence. And
Yeah.
now they're mixing in, and it's great. It's great that they found you get to understand that when you see your own family,
Yeah.
how great the diversity is. So, is there anything special you could say about the pictures, that looking for pictures that might help people as they try to understand what they can do, or how do they know they got something special, or how do they identify the people on the on the picture?
Uh, well, yeah, a lot of my research is actually just basic ancestry searches. So,
Yeah.
and I've located families that way, and then these families have pictures like the ones here that I'm sharing with you. So it's just, I mean, it's become a passion because every time I meet another mestizo family and they want to know about their Filipino side, I'm able to help them out and locate documents on their ancestors there and help them complete their story.
Well, that's great. And Lonnie, really, I appreciate you coming on this first uh, FANHS Museum pop-up to share some of these pictures. And I want to encourage people viewing this, either if you're viewing it live on Facebook or you're viewing a recording. I want you all to look into that box in your closet at photos. I found some photos, or my cousin did. She sent me some from 1932. I'm going to be looking through them. You can see one of them on the FANHS Museum Facebook page, where I talk about my father in that fundraising post, where he's wearing saddle shoes and he's pointing a finger, and he's dressed in his Sunday finest, even though he was a cook, even though he was a chef. You know, you didn't see him in a grimy apron. You see him all dressed up. They're all duded up, and even in Lonnie, even in Arizona, they're all duded up. Well, that was a wedding there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the
But
Filipinos liked to dress. They weren't so casual as they
yeah,
are
you
today.
you couldn't tell that they worked in the fields. They like movie stars on the weekends.
Yeah, exactly. They loved to shine, and maybe we could tell something from the photographs in your in you know if you go into your closet, you find those photographs, and we can tell a story. Um, my story has to do with the photos of my that my cousin found. My father purportedly was the one who encouraged her dad, my uncle, to come from the Philippines because even though things were tough here in America with the Depression, the Filipinos would send back these glowing stories about it's so nice here in in America. The streets aren't lined with gold, but you know you can find a nice suit. You can find running water. It's great here in America. We're not going back to the Philippines. Come from the Philippines to America. That's what my cousin said. Her dad told her, and these pictures from 1932 kind of indicate that uh, he was trying to convince his young cousin that, hey, yeah, you made the right choice. Come to America, even though it's a depression. Anyway, lots of pictures to find, to share, to tell their stories. We will do this Facebook pop up again. We'll do it live. You can watch it on FB Live by the link. It'll be stored there in Facebook in an hour or so. But if you're watching live, thank you for engaging with us. Um, Ask any question that you have in chat. I can't see it right off because my screen is limited, but I'll get to your question or questions. Um, Send me a heart if you're still watching or something on Facebook, and to know that you're at least paying attention and that you like what we're doing here. But I thank you for joining us. Lonnie, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Emil. A pleasure to meet you, like I said, and say hi to all my friends out there in Stockton. And I
Yeah.
hope to see them soon, and hope to see you soon.
Well, we want to see more about what's going on in in Phoenix. You know,
Yeah, I'll continue to share what we have with you.
yeah. Please do, and we will we will let's see. Let's stop sharing here. Uh, we will come all together again. We're going to do more of these museum pop-ups, and if you, I want to see the next picture you uncover, the next picture you
Okay.
discover, because undoubtedly it'll be a real find, and it'll have another story worth sharing with our Fonz Museum community. So, Lonnie Riamas Patuba, thank you very much.
Okay. We'll see you, Emil. Thank you very much, and you guys take care up there. Okay.
Okay, there you go, Lonnie. You can check out. I don't want to hold you. So there you have it. We're here. Um, if you're still with us, I appreciate you being here. Like I said, this has been a kind of a banner week. You notice yesterday was the 15th, August 15th. It was the day. I mean, if I'm sure you have your Filipino American History Bible, right? It's Don Mabalin's Little Manila's in the Heart, right? And I'm sure you know who D.L. Marquelo is, right? D.L. Marquelo was the editor and publisher of the Three Stars, which is the Filipino newspaper. In fact, everything, or not everything, but a lot of what's in Don's book comes from local ethnic newspapers, the Three Stars in Stockton. And I identified it as a labor paper, but it wasn't really a labor paper. I mean, it may have started out focusing on labor, but a it really was a Filipino paper, a Filipino newspaper. When it wasn't presented in the Stockton Record, you can bet it was in the ethnic news, like the Three Stars. And that's where it was reported that two Filipinos were lynched, found hanging, two Filipino bodies found hanging from trees, and a third burnt leaning against a tree trunk. and Lodi. Reported August 15th, 1930. So it could have happened anywhere from a week to a few days before. I don't know when the pub date was, or we know the pub date. We don't know when it actually happened, but the publication date was August 15th, 1930. And 1930 was the year we had Fermin-Tabera and Watsonville. 1930 was the year that we had the riots in Stockton. So someone wants to know, how were Filipinos treated in 1930? Remember these stories. These are important stories. And these are the stories we tell here at the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum. My name is Emil Guillermo. I'm the museum director. We do these engagements, these pop-ups every now and then. We'll be back again next week on the next Sunday. We'll have something new. We'll talk about something new. We'll start it off perhaps as a Facebook Live, but we might just do it as a Zoom. Check the Filipino American National Historical Society Museum Facebook page where you are now for details. Until then, have yourselves a good weekend, rest of the weekend. I told you we'd only be on for an hour. We'd only be on for an hour or less. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. You can email me at filipinomuseum@gmail.com, filipinomuseum@gmail.com. And until then, salamat, mahals, salamat, take care.